Hey everybody, welcome to What's Up Wednesday. This week we're going to cover a safety topic, and if you like topics like this, hit the like button, maybe leave a comment, and let us know what you'd like to hear more about. We're happy to pick topics that you want to hear and that you want us to discuss. So this week I'm going to talk a little bit about hazardous atmospheres. Now, something came up the other day that made me realize how few safety professionals truly understand hazardous atmospheres. I'm talking about atmospheres you're going to find in trenches, excavations, confined spaces, and other areas like that. Though some of us who are old enough to remember Star Trek, when the crew of the Enterprise would head to a planet or leave the ship, they had a little tool called a tricorder. And the tricorder, the idea of the tricorder was it would be able to determine whether an atmosphere on a planet or in another place was safe or not. And I wish we had a tricorder. We don't. The closest thing that we have on a multi-gas monitor would be an oxygen sensor, which I'll get into just a little bit. But first off, when we look at atmospheres, there are three things we kind of have to consider. One is going to be oxygen content. Another one is going to be combustible gases and vapors. And then the third would be toxics. Now, when we look at toxics, the two most common toxics that are monitored are hydrogen sulfide and carbon monoxide. They're very prevalent. We find them in a lot of places. Hydrogen sulfide is basically created by the decomposition of organic materials. That would be plant life, that would be animals decomposing, and it's very prevalent in oil and gas. So H2S is common, it smells like rotten eggs, and it's extremely poisonous. The alarm level or the PEL on hydrogen sulfide is 10 parts per million, very low. Carbon monoxide is another toxic gas that is very, very common, and it comes again from decomposition by fire of organic material. So burning wood, burning anything really, hydrocarbons, oil, gas, but carbon monoxide is formed through combustion. And the thing about both of these toxic gases is they're heavier than air. So they're going to want to drop down and settle in low-lying places such as trenches and excavations and confined spaces. So very common that a gas monitor is going to detect those two toxics if you have those sensors in your gas monitor. The next one that I mentioned was combustible gases. So combustible gases would be what we call lower explosive limit LEL. That's the sensor in a gas monitor. It's designed to determine any kind of a product that will burn. So, I think it's normally calibrated to methane. And then the next piece would be oxygen. And normal oxygen in air is 20.9% by volume. Now, the alarms on the gas monitor are set at 19.5% on the low and 21.5% on the high. But the one thing I want to emphasize is that if there's a significant flux in your oxygen reading, again, 20.9 is normal. What if it's 20? Is that safe? Maybe. It's legal because the alarm doesn't go off until 19.5%. But the thing to consider is that when we measure toxic gases, we measure them in parts per million. And 1 part per million, 10,000 parts per million equals 1% by volume. That means that if that 1%, that 20.9 is 19.9, that's 1% by volume, which means you could have 10,000 parts per million of some other toxic. And if you only have an oxygen sensor, a combustible sensor, a hydrogen sulfide sensor, and a carbon monoxide sensor, it could be another gas. It could be carbon dioxide. It could be sulfur dioxide. It could be something at 10,000 parts per million, which, depending on what it is, could be extremely toxic and kill you instantly. So it's important to pay attention to that oxygen sensor. Make sure you calibrate your monitor regularly. Make sure you bump test it. And any time that there's an anomaly, you just bump tested your monitor and it's reading properly and you drop it in the hole and it's reading low or it's reading high, pay attention to that. Ventilate, retest it, make sure it's safe, because so often people make the mistake of assuming that because it's within range and it's legal and the alarm's not going off that it's safe. So hopefully that helps, and we'll see you here next Wednesday.